Live now.
Councillor Pemberton, could you turn your camera on, please? Right, kia ora koutou. Welcome to the Strategy and Policy Committee, Wednesday 31st of July. Fancy that, we're at the end of July already. I ngā rangatira tēnā koutou, ko tai mai ki te tautoko te kaupapa o te rā, nō reira tēnā rā koutou katoa. Special welcome to our guests up the back. We'll come to you in just a minute, boys, but welcome. Get my bits of the paper. Apologies, please. One from Anne Wakefield, any others?
No, Paul Evans is on leave.
Thank you. Yeah. Somebody like to move those, please?
Happy to move.
Chairman Hall, seconded to Councillor McPhail. All those in favour, please. Aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. And excitingly, we have public forum petition and deputation. We have a deputation. So welcome, haere mai boys, to the table. As you can see in your agenda, we're welcoming the boys from Treat Yourself. Either one, boys. Yeah. I met the boys out at Aparima College at the end of last term and was excited by what they were telling me, so I thought the councillors might be interested in what the boys are doing and how it might fit with our aims and objectives through council. So welcome, boys. Introduce yourselves, please, and take it away. You've got 5 minutes to talk, 5 minutes for questions, but if the councillors have got further questions, we'll take a bit longer. Okay.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
So yeah, hi, I'm Brody. I'm Caleb, and we're Treat Yourself. So what we are is we're a tree planting company. So we're part of the Young Enterprise Scheme here in Southland, and what that looks like is that's a sort of a business project that runs through high schools, and that sort of runs as a national thing. So we decided that what we'd do is we'd put our horticultural knowledge to play, so we launched a tree planting company. So a lot of what we do is community planting. So we started off by planting around the school tree project area. So we're at Aparima College, which is out in Riverton. So we started planting around school project area and this community walkway that we started planting up. And really what we were looking for was a community of thriving trees. So yeah, we focus on native regeneration, which is why we plant native trees strictly. So we started looking into the community and we realised that not many people were planting trees. There were some, but we felt there could be more. And partly what that seems to be was that a lot of people didn't have the time, knowledge or resources to get trees planted. So we decided that we'd crack on into it. So over the last year, so we ran last year and we're running again this year, we've refined our business model, which really gives people sort of a hands back, easy approach, while we tackle on all the hard work of planting and planning and maintenance and all that fun stuff. So to talk about our method.
Yeah, so we've basically set up the one-stop shop for tree planting. So yeah, all the tree planting needs are covered, so there's no hassle, or especially with farmers being quite busy or the customers being quite busy, it's quite good we take out all that work for them. So first what we'll do is we'll come and give a quote. So
Technical difficulties. Just leave it right.
Oh, yeah, so first we'll give a quote. So we'll come out we're quite a rural for rural personal approach to our business. So we'll come out, we'll give a quote to the customer, we'll get a sort of a feel for the site, get a inspection, make sure that the ground's the right quality and get an idea of any drainage or how the shadow's going to look, and get an idea of what the customer wants so that we can meet that need. Then a big need is to sort of give them an understanding of what that's going to look like. So that's why we started using Minecraft at first. Give them a bit of taste of what it looks like, but we've recently been using some AI technology, which is a bit more realistic. And that sort of lets them see what it looks like, and then they can manipulate how they want that to look to meet their vision. So yeah, after we've created our design, then we do all the sourcing of the trees and all the protectors and all that. So we've got our own nursery that we've been starting up at the moment. And we also just source from other nurseries. So we've got good partnerships and communication with the nurseries, so we can get good deals for all our customers. And after we've sourced all the trees and all that, we then do all the planting ourselves. So we've got a team of hired workers that we do, and we can pay them up to $80 an hour. They're on a really efficient system, so we provide all the equipment for them, and they go out, plant all the trees, and yeah, it's really efficient. We've planted thousands of trees in a couple of hours, so that's been good. And yeah, then after that, we've found a huge part is actually the maintenance of them, looking after them. There's been a huge demand for that, and actually that's a bit of a lack in the market at the moment. Not many people continuing to maintain them. So yeah, we offer a follow-up spray under the GrowSafe license holder that we have, and yeah, spray them all, make sure that they're looking good, and then we do. Well, so we've had about a 90% survival rate across that, and yeah, plenty of happy customers from our rural for rural approach. That's been good.
Yes, we've had some phenomenal success so far. So we've planted 4,000 trees last year, and we're projecting this year and next year to get about 10,000 at least planted. So we're really stoked about that. So as I was saying before, we're part of the Young Enterprise scheme. So we competed for Southland, and we actually came first, which we were really excited about. And then Young Enterprise actually flew us up to Wellington, free for us. So that's exciting. And we placed about 4th nationally, which was just amazing. So our story. So story is really important to us. So we both come from farms. We've been best buds for 4 years, something about that. And so we were really focused on how can we try and make the community better. And then because we're in a business that's got to upscale. So we still sow back into the community. So we still do free plantings in the tree project area, which is massive. So there's no limit to that. And the community walkway, which has been awesome. But we've really been able to upscale in the farming sector. So farmers are often quite busy, but they've got quite a big space, and they've been really open to us, being that rural for rural friendly approach, and Southland being an awesome community. So yeah, that's been really awesome points of success.
Yeah, and it's been quite cool because that was sort of our dream at the start to see this community walkway planted out. So after we've adapted our business model, it's been cool to still go back to our original plan and then fully plant it out, funded through the profits we've made from the business. So another thing we're quite big on is our sustainability. So one thing that we do is from all the nurseries, we've received the leftover plastic pots. So we've used those to replant our own and start up our own nursery, planting our own one, or eco-sourcing, which has been quite good. And on that, we also saw that had an idea to use paper cups. So we're looking at these in New Zealand paper cups here that we could just reuse. We've just poked some holes in the bottom for drainage, and yeah, we thought that could be quite cool and a new environmentally friendly take. Another thing that we do is use wool carpet for the weed mats around the trees. So yeah, we've got wool mats that we buy, but we've also been making our own using recycled wool carpet, which we thought, another good environmentally take, just using up stuff that was going to be wasted. And I guess for us, one thing is that we sort of have found that as we've grown, that partnering with other people as well in this sustainable future has been really good for us. So we've found that working with other people has allowed us to achieve these environmental initiatives. A whakatauki that we thought summed this up was Mate Kohitanga e whai kaha a tātou, which means in unity we have strength. So yeah, we've partnered with other businesses like Te Tapua Tāne, Nurseryman, had involvement with Enviro Schools, Rural Women, Thriving Southland, some catchment groups. We're going to have Penny Simmons, we're going to have a talk to her, but yeah, that would be cool. So yeah, we've found just working together to achieve these goals has been really beneficial to us.
Yeah, so thanks for listening to us. I'm glad we caught you start of the meeting before everyone started dozing off.
Presumptuous of you, Ken.
I've been. Yeah, so really what we're looking for is, well, I mean, we plant out projects. So I understand that you guys do obviously environmental work. So yeah, we're really looking forward to if we can work together. So yeah, if you've got any questions.
Thanks, Caleb. I've got councillor Guyton, then Jim Horrell, then councillor Gibson.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. Yeah, really good stuff, guys. I live in Riverton and I've been following your project for quite a while now. I put my hand up to indicate that I had a question, and then you kind of answered it when you talked about your reuse of paper cups and so on, but I've still got a couple of questions about that. Coffee cups in particular often have a plastic liner that you may or may not know about. Yeah. So I was thinking about your wool weed suppressed mats. Have you thought about Templeton's mill out there, the flax mill, because they have product after they've done their processing, which you might be able to use that'd be quite a handy thing.
Yeah, that could be quite interesting.
Yeah, just using local stuff too. And I really like what's happening with behind the high school there, the walkway and the tree planting there. It's got a big future in that sense. But the other thing in terms of sustainability is your potting mix, because it's a big issue, whether you're using peat-based potting mix or whatever it is you're using. So I don't know whether you're thinking about that, because it's a big issue for nursery work. But with that in mind, I know that there's a significant composting project underway being launched in Riverton at the moment, and I could see you might be able to hook in with them and get some of their product to mix with whatever it is you're doing to try and reduce that load on peat swamps and so on, because you don't want to be planting trees here but destroying another. You know all about that, no doubt. But just thinking, yeah, linking into there's lots happening in our little town, and I'm real pleased to see that your business is operating out so successfully out there as well. So well done.
Thank you. What is the potting mix project?
A composting project. There's posters around the town about it. In fact, part of it's based out in the community garden behind the high school. But if you go down to the environment centre, ask there. Nick Kiddy is driving that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll keep that in mind.
Right, thanks, councillor. Chairman Horrell.
Yes, no, that's a fantastic project. And do you know that EES has a program going where we're bulk buying plants so that we can reduce the cost? If you run out of plants, that may be another opportunity for us, is to talk to our land sus team, because we realise that the cost is a big factor, but the fact that you're also doing the follow-up, and I've had some planted through another organisation, and because farmers I don't have time to do the maintenance. If you're in the maintenance phase, you find some trees have died, do you actually replace them at the time? No.
Yeah, so we've been guaranteeing a survival rate so far. It's been quite hard because a lot of that comes under, like, if they've got stock that have come in and eaten half their trees, it's a bit unfair for us to replace them. So we've sort of tried to stick away from this guarantee just to avoid that. But yeah, we've had 90% survival rate so far, so we haven't needed to replace them yet. But we've got quite a rural for rural approach. So yeah, we're wanting to do the job right. So yeah, we'll replace them if they need that.
So you're not stipulating that the block's fenced before you start, because I would have thought that would have been pretty helpful. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Councillor Gibson.
What a gutsy project, and it's really good to see you doing it. The thing that gets me is succession. At the moment, you're in green blazes, but with your abilities, you'll be off to university or somewhere else. What's the succession program for your business?
Yeah, so we do have workers at the moment, and we are planning on keeping it running while we're at uni. So well, obviously we live here, so we'll be coming back to and fro. So yeah, that's at the moment we're sort of working through how we're going to actually keep it running. So that is a work in progress. But yeah, we've got some great support from our community, so we're hoping that it'll
At the moment, roughly the plan is that we'll still do all the quotes and the inspections and organising all the trees, and then all we have to do is just tell the workers what to do, and then they'll do the planning for us.
Great stuff.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Fantastic work, team. It's really good you're taking on a lot. I don't want to load you up with any more sort of stuff, but things are developing pretty quickly at a central government around the use of biodiversity credits and what that could mean. And what I've found is that initial advice is so important for people because they get very excited if they've got this idea that they want to do. So how do you go on? My question is that key advice right at the very start and incorporating all this new stuff that could potentially come in, is that a large part of the business? Or do you go along there and say, what do you want? Or do what you want?
Yeah, that's sort of been our approach so far. I mean, planting trees is sort of what we do, but how our customers per se want that, we're sort of open to. Sticking within native trees is really our only restraint at the moment. So,
Just sort of mention that there could be other opportunities to push that behaviour, those good behaviours.
Right, yeah.
Thanks, councillors. Thanks, boys. Not all of our guests get the full attention of our councillors as well as you have, so well done. Yeah, we're all still awake. You are, of course, welcome to stay for some more of the meeting and see how much fun it really is. But otherwise, yeah. Thanks very much for making the trip, and I'll potentially see you at school.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Very welcome. Right, thank you. Right, before we move on any further, I'd just like to cover off a couple of things. Firstly, I don't imagine that we will need to stop at 12 if the end is in sight. So with the meeting's permission now, if we're close to the end, we won't stop after our 2 hours. We'll just keep going.
Yep.
Everybody.
Happy with that.
And secondly, I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Winston Skerritt. Winston was a very good friend to me and full of life and great stories. I hope somebody's captured those stories, Stuart, because they were fascinating insights into what her life was like.
Your second name was Joy. She was, wasn't she?
She was. Always impeccably attired, and she was very, very good to me. So I am very sad, and I would like councillors to take a moment to acknowledge her passing. Thank you. Thank you.
Through the chair, can I just, for those who don't know, Michael Skerritt, Winston's husband, he was our first manager at Te Ao Marama. And he was the one who done all the legwork and built the MOUs and relationships between iwi and councils and got us into the place, I'll say, where we are today. And so he was Te Ao Marama who instigated. It was Michael who done all the legwork and actually pulled it all together and stuff like that. Quite instrumental in I'll say the good relationship that we have today with the local authorities and agencies and such like. Was very busy man when he was managing Te Ao Marama for us. So it's just, I think it's just right that he does get that acknowledgement and his wife. Kia ora.
No, kia ora, Stuart, and yeah, acknowledging Michael's loss, but also his mana. Tangi tomorrow, I'm sure will be well represented, and it will be a
Appreciate that.
big day. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Right, our confirmation of minutes, that's item 5, so the minutes of the Strategy and Policy Committee meeting from 26th of June, which I watched from my not New Zealand base for a little while. Make sure you were behaving yourselves while you were unattended, unsupervised. So the minutes of the somebody like to move those, please?
I can move that.
Thank you, Councillor Rodway. Seconded, please, Councillor Pemberton. Any changes? Thank you. I'll put those then. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes. Carried. Thank you. Any extraordinary business? Haven't been. Good. Questions? Councillor Rodway had a question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I did circulate this to everybody. It's not on the agenda papers as such because it was a bit late, so apologies for that, but came about really from Wilma's recommendation and her report, which drew our attention to this review of the event related to Cyclone Gabrielle in Hawke's Bay and the independent flood review report, which was very enlightening, I thought, and very relevant not only to Hawke's Bay but also to all regional councils and district councils for that matter in New Zealand, and that there are 47 specific recommendations in this report that in my view are very important to us as well. And while I ask the question, I am sure that there is already something happening in this regard. So, but this is just to formally ask will we be examining these recommendations and implementing them as appropriate for this report, and basically when and how are we going to be doing that?
Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Chair. So as Councillor Rodway has indicated, this is a highly significant report and discussions have already commenced, not only within the building but across the regional sector, and as you noted, it's relevant for all local government. So where this will fit is within our climate adaptation and floodplain management program. It touches across many of the council functions. And we have a session with you next week, which is about the work program for the year ahead, and you'll be able to see, I guess, where those touch points might be, but definitely something that we will be workshopping and bringing through to the relevant council and committee meetings over the coming year. Highly relevant.
Okay, thank you.
Through Madam Chair, just to add to from a civil defence perspective as well. So the report, this one and the other reports that have been happening across the sector since the cyclones have been tabled with the group, the joint committee. And so there's been an initial conversation there, but they were asking similar questions about how we're making sure that those recommendations are coming back into the building. So the National Environmental Management Agency, NEMA, are currently working on a review of reviews. There's been so many, so there will be more recommendations to come. And also, obviously, across Southland, we're reviewing our recent activations, both the September flood event and the Lucas event. So there's plenty for us to be talking about in this space. And as Rachel said, we'll be bringing it back to you in a joined up way about how it dovetails into our work programs.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I might just ask, one of the recommendations related to the regional policy statement and how it needed to be more directive and make sure that people didn't build in places that were at risk. And I imagine that our regional policy statement, while I was involved in the development of it, I can't remember exactly what it said about those things. So that might be something we need to look at as well.
And again, just definitely is the answer to that question. It is in need of a review in regards to the natural hazard chapter. Marcus and the team are working on an effectiveness review at the moment, the scope for the RPS changes that will come. Some of those will be being addressed through the water and coastal matters that we'll be traversing later in the agenda, but broader than the hazards chapter, and certainly how we move forward with the climate change elements too needs to be updated. So yeah, there will be further discussion about how we do that and when.
Thank you.
Councillor McDonald?
Yes, thank you. Excellent question, Morris. A lot of the things you've just been talking about, Lucy and Rachel, can they be driven through their regional climate change group that has oversight across all the authorities in the region? Just a bit worried about us working on their stuff, someone else working on their stuff, and not quite lining up. Could this be a central piece of work for the newly formed regional group, climate change group? Just a suggestion. Phil, you might want to comment on that too. Sorry to put you on the spot there.
I just observe that to say we have oversight might be a little stretch in terms of what that working group is enabled to do currently. But certainly it's a set of recommendations that we can weave into our consideration and deliberations, I would imagine, amongst a range of other inputs to that consideration. But I wouldn't hang our hat on that working group being the ones to solve the recommendations.
Just to make sure there's no gaps across the region would be important, I would think.
I could just add through you, Chair, I think one of the key strengths of the working group at both the governance and staff level has been the sharing of information, and so yeah, that's definitely a great channel for us to be able to talk to the other councils in Te Awamarama about the report and what we're doing and what they're doing and how we line things all up. So the information sharing aspect really important.
Thank you.
Councillor Cook?
Yeah, just an observation, Chair, that we somewhat unique across the country. We have 4 councils working together on a regional basis for our emergency management program. Not to say that we've got all the answers to everything, but that is in contrast to the subjects of the reports that have been coming out where they don't have cooperation, they don't share information, which is one of the things that have not operated to their benefit. So we have a regional amalgamation of information, so we don't have that problem of sharing information the same, and we have a regional response to whatever happens within Southland.
Thank you. Chairman Horrell?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I was going to make some comments under report, so we might actually morph into that bit because it's relevant. So we had a Zoom regional sector meeting last week, and obviously the Hawke's Bay report had just been released, and there have to be learnings from a disaster of this scale. It appears that this could well have been a 1,000-year event, and the recommendations in the report are relevant for all regional councils. And the reality is, flood banks, an event like that's always going to overtop existing flood protection. So there's a whole lot of this about capacity of rivers, spillways, a whole lot of stuff that we're already talking about through our slow the flow. One of the things that is concerning me, and I guess other in the regional sector, is that we don't have a knee-jerk reaction to emergency management. Our system works particularly well down here. Everybody's got skin in the game, and there's sort of rumours coming out of Wellington that they almost might have a national direction, which we've always said in an emergency we want response to come in and support, but if we lose local knowledge and that local capacity, that's also a danger. And with the flood concerns, the spatial planning did come up in the conversations, and the climate change question, and the comments were really climate change is across everything. So you factor it into all those things rather than trying to put it in one box. But I think, yeah, I do feel for the Hawke's Bay at the moment. Been under the spotlight, some good things will come out of it, but it's been pretty hard on staff and governance, I guess.
Thank you. And just my 2 cents worth, I guess, is that perhaps we need to remember that a regional, although we don't have to have a regional spatial strategy anymore, something like that is still going to be necessary to cover off lots of those connected issues. And the mayoral forum perhaps is another place where some of those conversations can be happening. Right, thank you, Councillor Rodway, for your question and the ensuing debate. Item 8 is the chairman and councillors' reports. I don't have anything. So if anybody else, Councillor Gibson, thank you.
I spent 10 days in the Hawke's Bay just when I was on holiday, but accidentally ran into one of the Hawke's Bay, one of the councillors, the regional councillors. They are extremely worried about where this is going to go. And we should be extremely worried too. And it's only going to come out through the courts as things go through. Because they're being hit at the moment with East Valley, and now they're being hit with the Wairau situation. So, and I think it adds a lot of credence to Councillor McPhail's point the other day. We have to limit what we can protect. You know, I know there's probably policies and things in there that we can't do that, but we've got to be able to put that out because we can't just physically protect everybody against nature. And that's what they're finding.
Thank you. Anybody else been to anything? Thank you. Right, that takes us to item 9.1, the Regional Coastal Plan update. It's coming to the table. I would just like to say that the table is the table in the table.
Hard to read.
The writing's really little, but it's a very well put together and really good summary. I think from my perspective, where we're at and what we've got. Things we've got to do here. But yes, I'll let you speak to your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess this is just on the back on some of the workshops that we had more recently, and specifically one of the comments, there were multiple comments, one of the comments was from Councillor Gibson around please what's going on with the bigger picture kind of commentary around that. So just a response to that, but fundamentally trying to give you much more of a sense of the bigger picture here. So as you can see, the 2 appendices, sorry for the formatting, it was in a slightly different format before, but it's kind of like a history of where we've got to today. So, and then there's also the table, which goes back to the, goes back in time a wee bit based on some of the discussion papers for some people around at that time. There has been a change in council policy as well. There was some direction given as a response to those papers that then I've also incorporated the more recent workshops as well. And we can chase up in detail on some of those things if needed. And then I've also provided the timeline as well, the bigger sense of timeline, but there will be, there's other things in the pipeline with regards to the detail of specific decisions. And I think there's 2 more workshops or so as well. And what we're working on at the moment is the coming together, as it were, of the regional coastal plan and the freshwater space. With the council on a very similar timeline, as you know. So that's essentially the update at this point.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Rodway.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you, Nick. This is a very good report. I note on the table under biodiversity and ecosystems, the bullet points there, you've got 1, it says biogenic habitats. I'm not sure what biogenic means in this situation.
Biogenic will be more like shellfish bed.
Sorry?
That'd be more like shellfish bed.
Oh, okay.
Sorry for that terminology. Yeah.
Right, thanks. I note that you say on the next column in that place that concentration on conservation of habitats rather than individual species may be more effective. And I would agree entirely with that. I remember at a recent workshop, we had a list of species and it wasn't complete, and it's not possible to list all the species that might be affected because we've got a whole lot of invertebrates, for example, that some haven't yet been discovered. So it's very important. I think I support that very strongly, that the concentration on the conservation of habitats is the important thing. And one other thing in relation to marine farms on page 23. I think that in our new policy, coastal policy statement, we need to have policies that require marine farms where an imported food is used, for example, a salmon farm, as opposed to a mussel farm. The ones that have imported food need to treat their waste so they are not discharged into the environment. And the example is like a dairy farm. The dairy farm has to treat its dairy waste from the dairy shed, has to spray it onto the land at a rate that can be used within the farm boundaries, and it doesn't leave the farm boundaries. So marine farms, in my view, should be the same. They should be able to capture their waste and treat them so that they can be used in the totality of the farm environment, and not be allowed to spread out and use the environment to treat them. That's something for the future, but that's something I think that's important, Madam Chair.
Tricky in the sea.
Well, it's not impossible.
No. Councillor Gordon?
Could I just add to that? It's a very good point that you're making. It's a basic principle that we should adhere to, and my impression is that we won't. We'll go nowhere near it. But beyond that, when you're talking about imported feeds, there's two issues, and I've tried to get marine farming spokespeople to answer this question. It's very difficult to get a straight answer out of them. Those imported foods are sometimes, often, in my view, containing genetically modified plant material because it's cheap and imported and easy to. So that's going to go out into the wider environment. Again, that makes Councillor Rodway's point more pertinent. The other one is if they're using fish feed from fish caught in the oceans to feed those fish in the marine farms, there's a basic failure of something, ethics or whatever, involved in that, because those small fish that are caught en masse elsewhere in the world are lost to the system and then being fed to these big fish, which are then sold to people who can afford it. It's just a bad situation. So I'd really like to, at some stage, to get some clarity around some reality, some real answers, because I feel that the industry has been evasive up until this point. Thank you.
Any questions?
Why limit it only to imported food?
Excuse me, Councillor.
Sorry.
I'll come back to you if you have questions.
Right.
Chairman Horrell, thanks.
Couple of questions on that same biodiversity ecosystems. I see in the final column it says that there's a reedy beach management group. I'm assuming it's already set up. Who's on it? Any governance input into it at all? It's
Sorry, what was the question?
The Areti Beach Management Group. No.
So we're still exploring that, but the Areti Beach Management Group is effectively the existing group, which has an MOU, and the members on that include Southland District Council, Environment Southland, Invercargill City Council, with Waihopai, I believe, and I think MPI and John. Police as well, sorry. So that MOU goes broader than just that, because it's about the management of that beach in its entirety, but that would seem like a reasonable place to go to explore the logistical and implications of implementation of anything. Test that. Yeah.
No, thanks for that. And the second question was a bit of a follow-up on the marine farming. There's the ability to have pretty much plant-based food sources. If we get a larger industry, I believe we can probably source it locally. At the moment, we don't have the volume to make that work. And I'm not sure that marine farm is quite the same as a dairy farm, Morris, but mitigation, they know now with the amount of feed you put in there and the timing, you can minimise the losses below, and and if we move into that ocean environment, the ability to mitigate and disperse any losses are greatly enhanced. But at the moment, we have a coastal plan that's not particularly permissive to aquaculture, and as iwi have found out in recent times, and their ambition to have a seafood industry in Southland is strong, and hopefully what we do in the next 12 months will actually help those ambitions.
Councillor McPhail, then Councillor Pemberton, then Councillor McDonald.
To be honest, I actually support some of Robert's discussion in this in regards, suggested an action point. Can we suggest that we get a aquaculture expert or industry or who's going to give us the information that's in regards to what's been fed and things, because often that if there's a vacuum of unknown, people make up and hear a story and say it's going to be bad. It's actually a little, how about we have a session on it? It's obviously something that's going to be talked about into the future. The sooner we understand what the systems really work, but we need to make sure we've got the right person in the room to be able to answer those questions too. So I'd be just putting it down. Can we do that?
You make that an action point. Yeah. Absolutely. Sorry, lost my list. Councillor Pemberton, thanks.
Yeah, I think Councillor McPhail probably touched on what I was going to bring up, and I think probably my question is aquaculture has it taken a full holistical lens? We're asking that of land users now to have a more holistical look at how they operate, and is there an opportunity that's been missed around that? There's multiple species being farmed in a similar area, and I think Jeremy's request might help answer that question. Thank you.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. I think it's a really good question. A lot of this council's energy and resource is used on redressing past issues around not addressing the key question that you're talking about in regards to fresh water here in this region. We have the opportunity to look at it and knowing what we know up front. So we should have that discussion most definitely, and not fall back into the same trap as that we go on with something and later on we face the questions when it's too late. We can't unknow what we know now, basically. So I'd support that discussion at an appropriate time.
Councillor Rodway.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I do have to take issue with what our chairman says about dairy farms and fish farms. The government and everybody's thinking fish farms are going to be great. There's a whole lot of them out there, and it's exactly the same as the dairy expansion in the early 90s. We all thought this was wonderful, but now we found that our rivers are polluted, and there's, there are a lot of environmental concerns. Surely we can learn from that. There are fish farms that can operate without having to discharge their waste into the sea. We think the sea otters. It's a huge space. It'll just absorb all of this stuff and everything will be fine. That's what we thought about the dairy industry. In the Waikato and the Taranaki, farmers discharge their waste straight into the river for a long, long time. And some of them are still doing that. And this is, considered to be okay. It's a subsidy that all of us pay because the owner of the industry is not willing to pay for the treatment of their waste. It's a basic principle of resource management that we have to, even though it's going to be hard, that we have to address. I accept even now dairy farmers don't, some of their losses do go into the environment. The dairy farms that are on free draining land, their nitrates go into the groundwater. But that can be reduced, it can be almost, not almost, but eliminated to a great degree by a number of different practices. But it does cost, and at the moment, the industry says, oh no, that costs too much, we can't afford to have a barn so that the cows' waste can be contained. So if we don't take a strong stand on this and have rules like that in our policies, then the exact same thing will happen. And in 30 and 50 years' time, we'll be saying, well, why did those people allow that to happen?
Thank you, councillor. Stuart?
Kia ora. I guess it's another waste product we probably need to consider, because I know that Waikato we're talking about what materials would be used to build their cages and such like. And of course, there was a suggestion that they might be using a plastic product for their cages. And so I guess my concern is about the amount of microplastics that are in our system. Apparently there's nowhere on the globe now that you won't find it. And so I guess I'm just putting caution out there about, and if there's opportunity that we do consider materials that these things might be built from too, because we're going to be using plastics, they're going to forever leach. There's microplastics back in the system, which is, I guess, just as bad. Ultimately, we end up eating that, and so we all have that plastics within our own cells as well. So just a caution, I guess.
Thank you, Councillor Guyton.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, no, I think it's really excellent to hear this discussion happening at this point, and as Councillor Rodway points out, and others, that prior to the dairy industry coming down here en masse the way it has, I don't know if there was a discussion like this had in the council. I would have hoped that there was, and I suspect that there wasn't. But we should learn from our past mistakes. Just two things I want to say. When I first came onto the council here, I heard the refrain, dilution is the solution to pollution. I'm sure you know it. And that was the one that I guess they use in the Waikato when they put in their effluent into the rivers. And so I don't think it stands. I think it's a very good point. Just one thing, when Andrew Morrison was speaking last week, I think it was, he made the point right at the end of his talk that one of the greatest challenges to the dairy industry or to farming looming right now is animal welfare. And that's one thing we haven't talked about in terms of fish farming, particularly salmon farming, is the welfare of the fish. And that's bound to come up. Just to throw that in as something else to worry about.
Excellent. Thanks. Councillor Cook.
Yeah, this is historical now, but having lived up in Marlborough and seen underneath the nets and the salmon farms up there, the seabed dead. It's covered in fish feces and uneaten fish food. We don't want that. I hope we've moved on from that, but it effectively killed a lot of the fishing and the sounds and the sea life up there. I say it is historical, so I hope that we've learned a lesson from it. So Morris's question is very relevant.
Thank you. I have a couple of things that are not related to aquaculture, but clearly aquaculture is going to be a really hot topic as the fast track consenting process interferes with that. Well, interferes is the wrong word, sorry. So my questions are around the port zone. Strange place that we're in with that changes, and I know there's a mention of it in the later paper, so maybe that will cover that off. But I'm not clear about what the changes in the port zone are going to mean. So maybe we need, it might be just me, maybe I need a one-on-one, but I'm not sure how that's going to impact. And the other thing is the surface water activities that we in the PC5 Plan Change 5 work, we referenced the coastal plan being well, not the solution, but the major place for those changes to actually be effective. So good to see that it's in there, but there were a lot of references to the upcoming coastal plan. So I hope please just keep reminding me that that's where that is.
Just for clarity, Chair, in the table, you may have already picked up on it. It's shaded text, as it were. So those are the things that are what we're calling targeted work streams, for want of a better word. And Fieldland's one of them, which is, so I might suggest that as we come back to in the future, we actually keep those shaded text live so we can give you a continual update on those. On the
And I'll just
progression of
need to
those
try and keep
projects.
across the things that we said we would. I'm sure that we are. Thank you. Stuart?
Sorry. It's considered in the sort of wider drafting text, as it were, so yeah, it's within the regional coastal plan. Yeah, it does, it's sort of contained within some of the other material in there,
Thanks. Lucy, did you want to comment?
Oh, just sorry, Chair, to come back to the 2025 comments. I think it would be entirely reasonable for us to assist with the tracking of those recommendations and making sure that that we've got it demonstrated and documented how the Plan Change 5 recommendation reports leading through to the director, as opposed to councillors being. Gonna make that point.
Great. That would help.
Yes.
That would
And for
help.
those other councillors who weren't on the hearing panel.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, great. Any other questions, councillors? Oh, sorry, Stuart, Karen.
Can I guess just a lot of my own maybe is, we're talking about our coastal plan and the health and welfare of the coastal waters. We're all aware that Fukushima is currently discharging nuclear waste into the ocean. And I guess I'm just suggesting to you that you can't keep the dirty water in one end of the bathtub. And so we're all sitting back, and are we saying anything or making any noises about that? Because eventually, and I've been reading a little bit of literature lately about the deoxygenation of our waters, our oceans and our waterways, and the need for desalination of our waterways. We're starting to look at the oceans to go and find potable water. Are we going to wait until we put a plan together, or are we, is there opportunity for us to be making some known of our displeasure of them discharging that nuclear waste into the oceans that we know eventually is going to hit our waterways? So I just wanted to share that. I've been trying to encourage other committees and agencies I'm working on to at least make a noise, a squeaky wheel. Hopefully can, if there's enough of us, make a bit of a noise about it, because it's not just happening in Fukushima either. And they say, oh, it's hitting all the requirements of discharge, but it's only because the other countries of the world who are discharging the same thing has given them permission to do the same. So all I'm saying, suggesting is that eventually you definitely cannot keep the dirty water there far into the bathtub. I tried it, it doesn't work.
True. I might suggest that actually the regional sector group and some of those higher level kind of staff representations can, because a national approach to that would be more effective.
Yeah, definitely.
Councillor McDonald?
Yeah, I just want to add to that too. It's not just the water, it's their migratory species.
Oh, yeah.
Of birds that travel up them up.
Yeah.
And things like that too, so we're aware of that.
Thanks, councillors. Okay, the recommendation is to receive the report on the regional coastal
I'll move that
update.
recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Cox. Seconded, please. Councillor Gibson, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Next, carried. Thanks, Nick. Right, item 9.2 is the water and land plan update. Thanks, Liz.
This is just an update report, really, letting you know where we're at. Some of the work hasn't progressed a lot since we last reported, but it's been some that's gone away. In terms of the appeals that are ongoing with the water and land plan, there's been a bit of work going on. The Rule 78 work and weed sediment removal. We've now had our first meeting with the other appeal parties, so progressing to to see what agreements can be made outside the court process if possible. So you know that has started. The Court of Appeal, we've now got a date set down for the end of this month to discuss the Court of Appeal matter. So that's the incidental discharge rule.
So that's today.
So end of August. Sorry, I'm already in August. Yes.
Oh, Liz.
Yes, sorry. I'm always a month ahead. End of August. Thank you. So that's what's happening in the appeal space. The implementation of the plan is moving along. So getting more conversations out in the community with our farm interest groups. A lot of conversation in the intensive winter grazing space and trying to socialise and get buy-in from the other parties in terms of the messaging that is coming out of the plans. What else is on this report? Plan change Tuatahi. We are, whether we continue to call it plan change Tuatahi or not, there is work continuing in the provisional policy space. We've got still a wee bit of uncertainty in the NPSFM world and what's going to come out of that, but in the meantime we are forging on with some work and trying to meet the objectives that are already set in the plan that we know. So there will be more workshops coming up in that space to give you a bit of a clear idea as to what that work program looks like in terms of what we can do in the next few months or what we can do over the next few years. That's my report. Any questions?
Councillor McFarlane, then Councillor Morrison.
Just a clarification, obviously the meetings we're having, say, with the industry groups, and trying to get the comms out there. There's certainly, obviously with the government doing their thing, the industry groups, they know that we've got our own plans here, you know, like our own rules, the Southern Water and Land Plan. You're getting the feedback that they understand and they're telling their...
There's ongoing education. Yes, some are well aware and are helping us quite usefully in sharing the messages and keen on us to work with them to make sure the messages are being put out together. I feel like there is a lot more awareness, but there's still always a long way to go. And I think that will come as different rules come to, actually start affecting people in the real world. So.
Councillor Morrison.
I guess I noted the comment on winter farming activities, that communications relating to how the provisions will apply in the 2025 season are being developed. And I guess I'm just curious as to when there will be the commencement of active communication, knowing that many farmers will be planning well ahead for what's coming next year.
We're well aware of that. Donna is with me, and we've got a regular catch up with, for example, the winter grazing group out in the community, and the aim is to get that work underway, and we're really keen on having a conversation with councillors to let you know exactly what that work program is, and the dates around it.
So through you, Chair, work is underway on that calendar and all those dates. We're hoping to have that all together and finalised in the next few weeks so we can get that circulated.
Councillor Cook.
You just observe that government announcements or announcements of their intentions are actually undermining a lot of the work we've been trying to accomplish, and I don't think we should be losing direction or motivation to move forward with what we've already started, including plan change Tuatahi and our winter grazing rules. I'm just wondering, and Donald's here, whether we're seeing any of the rural community anticipating that rules will be relaxed and they can go back to what they were doing before.
Through you, Chair, so there is, I'm hesitant to use the word confusion, but I will, around what rules are applying when and where, and that central government's indication that all rules will disappear. So we're working to, as part of our plan, to make sure that confusion disappears and people understand we all have rules and now in our plan.
So supplementary to that, Chair, do we have a strong enough education and information program to make sure that the community in Southland are aware that we are proceeding, that we're not standing still or backing off.
Through you, Chair, so there is a lot of work going into communication and advice and education space. Some really good work is starting already, and we want to make sure that the rules are really clear for people. So there's lots of work happening in that space.
Thank you.
Lucy, did you want to comment?
Donna, can I answer my question on my point? Chair? So just to say that we've been communicating since the decision was made by council to make our plan operative. There's been a number of articles been released. Doing lots of work with our consultants, making sure that we're using all of the routes that we can to make it explicitly clear. But as the team have said, that work still needs to continue, and we need to keep making sure we're reaffirming that message. So certainly the government's announcements about the changes to the RMA in regards to intensive winter grazing and the stock exclusion rules have compounded some of the confusion, to use Donna's words. But we are making sure that we're being explicit about the fact that we still have those rules in place for Southland.
Thank you. Chairman Horrell.
Yes, Madam Chair, I think conversation last night, and even some of our councillors are quite sure our direction is on plan change to a day. I think what's in the report was fairly clear, but we will certainly have a further discussion probably at a meeting coming up. But I think the time the government is taking to actually indicate the changes to the NES freshwater and NES freshwater and the NES changes is causing us a bit of grief. If it was out there, then you can adapt it. But at the moment, I think we just need to continue to talk to the community about our own plan, Southland solutions for Southland problems. Most of our rules are for winter grazing farm plans are reasonably well understood. But at the moment, I guess staff and I have some frustration that we're not able to advance the farm planning, the farm plans as quickly as we'd like to, and we have time frame constraints that we need to work with. Hope the government is aware of that. Hopefully they'll be able to help us in some way, but we'll still have that perception by part of the community that the rules are all gone away. Well, the rules never all go away, and we will just have to continue to work on consistent, clear communication. And if we can do what we did with winter grazing with the industry groups as well, I think we'll get to where we need to get.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, just a general comment on the discussion here, and just what Nichols just said. Confidence needs certainty, and that's a question that will be coming up to this council. Are we prepared to give that confidence when there's so much uncertainty around? Can we give direction? Central government may not form their thinking on these matters very soon at all. They may not even do that within this term. So I've got some guidance on that, for example. For us to wait for something and continue to wait and wait and wait, that never arrives from Wellington. So yeah, we do have some big questions.
Just my comment is that I clicked through on the link for the fact sheets, and yay, it worked. And B, I found it useful from not a farmer necessarily point of view. So I hope that they are actually A, being used, and B, is useful to people who really need them. The only other question I have about that is, do we consider that English is a second language for many of the people that might be reading those fact sheets, and are we looking at any opportunities to translate it into other languages? Recommendation is to receive the report. Somebody like to move that, please? Thank you, Councillor.
Second.
Seconded, Chairman Hall. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? 9.3. PCE report update. Thanks, Ewan. And Karen.
Chair. I guess we'll take that largely as read. A short summary, I guess, would be that the PCE, through this review, found that the relatively devolved state of resource management in this country has resulted in the use of many models for freshwater, to model freshwater resource management in the country, and that has resulted in a few issues that he has identified. Those are largely listed there in the summary of the report's findings. Some of the risks that he identifies with that is the use of resources, of thin resources for that widespread development of models, the lack of guidance from a top-down national perspective around how to use those models, and that can result in difficulty for decision makers in terms of interpreting certain models or knowing which models to, how to interpret outputs from different models which appear to be doing the same thing. And that one of the particular risks was that due to the lack of consistency and guidance around how models are used, that may result in an increased risk of challenge using models. So a bit more to unpack there, but I guess it's a good questions.
I would recommend that councillors read the executive summary of the report if they haven't read it already, because it illuminated things for me very clearly. Questions? I have one from councillor Guyton.
Thank you. Yeah, talking about it, it's quite a bind, isn't it? It's a great report, but the way forward doesn't necessarily present itself as a result of the report. It seems to me when you're talking about the devolution of the science and the work out to the various parts, that does sound like it's problematic in a way, but in some ways it's not. It's also an insurance against, you know, a single decision made at the top, which might have a very, very low standard, you know, in how this works. And we're always talking about the value of localised knowledge and work, and so it is a bit of a bind. But I actually had a question on page 41. There's it talks about lack of commitment to mana whenua developed models. That's the heading, and then it says partway down, while Māori freshwater models exist, the use of Māori models in a regulatory context is virtually non-existent. So my question is, here at ES, are you aware of specifically mana whenua developed models? Do we have any? Are they part of our actual work, or do we just pay lip service to them? You may or may not know the answer to this question, but I personally think it's a critical point, which is just mentioned here. But I'd like to know where we sit on this.
Through you, Madam Chair, so I agree with the point that's made in the report. It is a very good and valid point. I would say that, so when we were doing work for People Run Land program and then subsequently plan change to Otahi, when we were developing, you know, the suite of models for our freshwater planning, we did have lengthy conversations with Te Ao Marama around whether or not how to bring Masaranga essentially, and what form that should come in with. The discussions at that time were, and this was really their core, was that they were quite happy to use the outputs of their model, our models, and combine that with their Masaranga, rather than them developing a modelling base themselves to go alongside or to work within the modelling framework that we had developed either. So that was really the call that was made, was that they were happy to endorse, they sit alongside our model development, and the indications at that time were they were happy to use our outputs with their Masaranga. So, you know, we followed the guidance on that, which means there's no bespoke model that has been used, but that was in accordance with their wishes, really.
Could I just no, that's a good answer. Very good answer. Do you see into the future an increased focus on mana whenua models or mātauranga ways of of appreciating or looking at the at freshwater, for example, management. Do you see us moving in that direction, or do you think job done? We've got an agreement and we're just going to carry on in this particular manner?
So through you, Madam Chair, no, I don't think the job is done. I think, I mean, and it's not done on the science side either. There's always more information and there's always room for improvement. And certainly that is part of our legal obligations around doing health monitoring, etc., as well as moral obligations, I would argue too. And so there have been discussions around how we might do that in a joined up way and what that looks like, which we want to comment on.
Through you, Chair, I just was observing staff from Te Marama in the room as well, and just wondered actually if, Rebecca, you wanted an opportunity to add to the discussion and me to add further.
Come forward.
Kia ora koutou. Morning, everyone. Yeah, I was putting my hand up saying, oh, I'm happy to contribute. I'm happy to contribute as well to the kōrero. So much as Karen has explained, there's been an ongoing, evolving relationship in this space and contributions over many, many years, and a great way of starting to weave elements together. My comment would be more at a philosophical level about developed models or not developed models. So unfortunately, the PCE report has a couple of pretty fatal components within it from a Te Marama Ngāi Tahu Merahiku perspective, which we are following up directly with them. Stuart was involved in a board kōrero about this just recently. So philosophically, from a Ngāi Tahu perspective, there's a way of viewing the world that has been in place and in practice for many, many hundreds of years. So to say there is or isn't a model is a little bit, I guess, simplistic. And so in terms of this report, I understand it was through the lens of the NPSFM and how elements of the NPSFM were contributed to or not. And so Karen's kōrero is 100% accurate in terms of the door's always been open and the invitation has always been there, and that we are all learning together how we do that, and that from a Te Marama perspective, we have now have an opportunity to look through the next 3 years of the LTP process to see how we continue to evolve that mahi and draw it together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Well, thanks, Madam Chair. That seems the recommendations all around alignment of modelling. You know, I know many critics don't attack the outputs, they attack the models themselves and how you got to that determination. So with that in mind, I know EES has quite a comprehensive process around peer review of models. Does other councils or other authorities have the same rigour around those processes? And further question to that is that, does this auditing or peer review of these models give alignment across the country around these modelling? That's not mentioned in here, because I guess that's what we're trying to get to the heart of, isn't it? To get some alignment. So there's a couple of questions confused in what I just said. So just around the peer review processes, does that give some alignment?
Through you, Madam Chair. I mean, it's, I guess, part of the science process to do peer reviews. I would be very surprised if other councils weren't doing some form of peer review in their model development. We probably did go a bit beyond the usual. We did go beyond the usual in the sense of we went through multiple review layers and then also had that independent panel pulled together. When we pulled that panel together, we tried to do that for regional sector good, because we were one of the first ones using some of these models at that time for the NPSFM work. We worked through the regional chairs, chief executive group, and included other regional councils in that review process. So other councils have definitely taken note of some of the findings of that review and have that has influenced their decisions around their modelling approaches. In terms of some of the reviews other councils do, I've got 2 other councils who I'm reviewing material for in the modelling space. So we do work across the sector as well as with universities and CRIs and other peers. So I'm pretty confident in saying that peer review is definitely a part of the national process. Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Chairman Hurrell.
Yes, Madam Chair, listening to the conversation about, you probably wouldn't call it Maori models, but I know in the lead up to the Golden Thread and the Aurora discussion, there was very much about the natural environment, the biodiversity. It's not the same science-based approach, but is things in the waterway, are they healthy? Is the biodiversity around it? And you might not call it a model, but it was certainly part of that discussion we had. But I'm looking at the stuff about making a lot of the stuff siloed, and I think the PCE's comments about making it more freely available. The big thing about modelling is really trends, and we've seen in the past that the SOE monitoring is because you need certainty. It takes time to actually show positive results. Whereas, there are a couple of examples where we were one of those, through Cawthron, so the Waihopai, which is still not a flash river model in a lot of cases, but it was the most improved river for year for E. coli and macroinvertebrate count, and that gave me a bit of hope. The same with the award for the Waituna Creek. Again, the lagoon is still a long way from where we want it to be, but that sort of science that actually shows we're making progress I think it helps us, it helps the community to say, well, actually, maybe we're on the right track. And I'm wondering whether there are any other methods we could overlay over our own comprehensive science background to strengthen where we are. And if it's really valuable, it's cheap. All models are a little bit different, but it is what he's trying to give the councils worth following up. In some ways, I think it would be quite good. It's not a huge cost to be able to do that sort of overlay.
Thanks, Jim. Do you want to comment on that, Kim?
Yeah, so through Madam Chair, there are a couple of things in there. One is around the way that our monitoring is done, which is generally once a month for water quality, and that's prescribed by the government. There's been some recent work that suggests, it takes about 20 years of data before you get really robust, meaningful trends out of that you can understand causality with. And for most people, that's not an acceptable duration to wait in order to understand how actions are influencing outcomes. So there's certainly quite a lot of work going on across the country at the moment around thinking around what's actually required out of monitoring programs and are they fit for purpose in terms of expectations, which is why in the current financial year, we have planned a major review of our SOE network in order to look at that particular issue. Models don't necessarily provide a whole lot of additional detail beyond probably what we've used them for, which is extrapolating out the understanding from monitoring sites more broadly across the region, which is some of the work that we have done and presented previously. It's a good point, and it's a point that I can say, as I said, the science community in New Zealand is very aware of, and there's a lot of work happening to improve the ability to report around changes in actions and effects.
Thanks, Karen. Just a quick comment from me. I think it's really important that we note that the report is not criticising the quality of our modelling. Ewan's last sentence, recommendations made within the report are exclusively actions for central government agencies and therefore do not necessitate any immediate action from Environment Southland. But to me, that means that actually it's not our models that are the problem, it's the system of the models across the country that the report is actually trying to refine so that there's better shared services and better sharing of information and easy access to information. Fair to say we got quite a bit of criticism through LTP submissions around modelling and what's that and what is it, how are you doing it? It's not right. But I think we just need to be clear that the report is not criticising the quality of our data collection or our modelling, correct? Right, and that. Oh, that's a really opened a can of worms, have I? No,
but it's all good. Finally, the PCE has sent this letter to presumably MFE or the Prime Minister or somebody.
They may not know who.
I wonder if it would be appropriate for this council to support those recommendations, notwithstanding what Rebecca said about the implement or development of Maori models, provided that can be sorted out. Should we write a letter to the Minister for the Environment or to the CE of MFE to support this? Would that be helpful or not necessary?
Councillors got a feeling for that? Yes, no?
Yeah, I think that won't do any harm.
I think we does anybody not agree with the recommendations per se? So we would generally be supporting that work, right? Okay.
Yes. I think I've heard from the PCE a couple of weeks ago. He says he writes these reports, he's independent, but government of the day are not bound to take them up. So any support for particularly over the cost of science and making that more available to the general public as well as ourselves, I think is really a no-brainer, and somehow we need to break down that siloed approach. And even if it was a little bit like if you had a patent for a few years, but then it became freely available, because there's a huge amount of science out there. If everybody had access to it, it would take us a long way.
So, staff, can we?
I'll second Morris's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Morris, do you have a question?
That was something that would be progressed with the regional sector.
Also,
yeah.
Maybe volume is important, maybe quantity and volume. We have a recommendation from. We'll just make it an action point, I think, from Councillor Rodway. So, do we have a time frame for that? Is it time on that, or there's no urgency necessarily? As soon as possible. Thank you.
We'll probably have to come back to it, perhaps the next council meeting.
Yeah, or a workshop. Right. Okay. So with that, the recommendation is to receive the report.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Chairman Horrell. Seconded, Chairman Councillor McDonald. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, team. 9.4 is the government policy and legislation monitor. This is every time I hear the word monitor in this space, I keep thinking of a lizard, the monitor lizard. I'm sorry, not that either of you look like lizards. Thanks. Shana, take it away.
Good morning. The item was to present the government legal and policy monitor that has been developed to be used as a tool for monitoring current and upcoming policy proposals from the central government. And it will be updated and shared with the council and all staff on a monthly basis as a standing item for this committee. I imagine most of you may have had a read of the monitor document itself. We are anticipating multiple benefits from the use of this document. Internally, it can be used to build a common understanding about the upcoming policy changes, which will help in moving a strategic approach in implementing various projects across the organization. And externally, it can aid counselors and staff to be more proactive in engaging with stakeholders, hopefully moving us from a more reactive to a proactive space in dealing with the changes coming from the central government. And I believe it's timely to have this tool in place, given the large volume of changes that are planned for the near future. Please note that the monitor was last updated on the 16th of July, about 2 weeks ago, so it doesn't reflect most of the policy changes that happened since then. Although I did add some details to the climate change section because of the recent major changes that have been announced. And I also note that the item mentions a visual summary and a summary of relevant legal cases that were considered to be included, but they haven't been attached just as a note. But we will consider including them in the future updates if appropriate. And lastly, we would welcome feedback from you because this document has been put together to assist you in understanding the changes and implementing strategic directions. So please let us know, either myself or Lucy Marquis, if you'd like to comment on any features or various meetings, so that about the form or the content, and we will be happy to take them on board to improve them.
Thanks, Charlotte. Marcus, did you want to say anything at this point, or you're on?
Shannon's covered it well.
Great. My only comment to begin with is there are many, many things. There are many, many things in this list. Councillor McDonald, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Just noticed there's quite a bit of discussion, I think last week, the week before, around the second emissions reduction plan. And infused in that was some recommendations some announcements around land use capabilities in relation to plantation forestry. Have you got any, and I think the words were that by the end of the year, have you got anything more definitive on when you would expect to hear some detailed announcements from the government on those restrictions?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, we're keeping your ear to the ground on that. It sounds like things are moving. Our latest intel from government is they're looking to put out 7 new national direction documents and review 14 existing documents this parliamentary term. So there is this wave of new national direction coming out, which I guess will all be amended through that process. So they're just trying to tranche up those packages to figure out the best way to make it happen. So not sure exactly on timing for forestry components as yet, but it will be bound up in the larger suite of things.
Can we use the word imminent? On the way.
Yeah, it's on the way.
It's over there. It's going to arrive. Okay. Very good.
And we'll bring it up and we'll include it in here as soon as we know more.
Thank you. Because it's been a big topic at this council and other councils around the region.
Chair Laurel and then Councillor Rodway.
Yes, just on that, 7 national direction processes, are they likely to be done at once with a short time frame for us to comment on? I think we all know that there are flaws in a lot of the NESs that, and I've heard some comment that they may all go out at the same time. Have you heard anything on that one at this stage, or is it still?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. It feels like they're more staggered. It's like renewable energy and electricity transmission and some of those ones. So it will hopefully be more staggered with more time to input. And I guess we all know is in that regulatory space, the more opportunity there is for submissions and the more people and diversity we can get in that submission process, the richer the decision-making process becomes. So certainly advocating for time to input and looking to provide input where we can, just to make sure we continue having our voice heard and trying to make those documents better for everybody.
Sorry, Councillor Rodway.
Oh, thank you. Not really a question, but really just to say that this is a really good summary of everything that's coming at us, and it's very useful to have it in this package. So thank you very much.
Quick question from me, if there's no others. I'm quite concerned about what's on page 55, the fertility legislation, and the broader conversation about how our country is. I wonder, it's not really a question, I suppose. I just want to flag that absolutely we want to be front-footing any conversations with mana whenua and to help support whatever conversations need to be had, because some of what that treaty principles are often mentioned in legislation, but they have never actually been defined in law. Mystifies me a wee bit. So yeah.
Just in support, through Chair, is the whole Waitahu home settlement was based on breach of contract, and we're just about watching them play a whole new breach of contract happening over again. And so I don't know where this is going to go. I think it's going to cost the nation a lots of money in litigation anyway, because for me, it's been well defined. We didn't spend all those decades pulling together evidence of who we were and what we were and why we were, and then just have it all tipped out. So please define this again. So as far as iwi's concerned, I'm really concerned, but what's it going to cost the nation in litigation?
And social structure.
Yeah, and social structure, yeah.
Councillor Guyton.
Thanks. Yeah, just on that, and maybe I'll give me some guidance here, but in terms of responding to the concerns that you expressed, in terms of the council responding, so you talk about mana whenua and our obligations to mana whenua, but what about pan Māori responsibilities, which would come to be treaty rather than the particular instance that Stuart's talking about? Because there are other issues like the Māori ward debacle that's underway at the moment, but we've decided, it seems, to not have a voice about that because our own mana whenua aren't. We don't have a Māori ward established here. However, whatever affects Māori right around the country also affects us, or whatever our voice can also be part of strengthening the response. So I was very disappointed when it seemed as though the council here chose not even to speak about the ward issue. I believe we should have, and we had the opportunity. So I don't know how others in the room feel about that, but I do think we need to be broader in our thinking about those, because to me they're a series of attacks on tangata whenua in New Zealand, and we can't afford just to sit back and let that happen without saying anything, in my view.
Councillor McDonald.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The easiest thing is to say nothing at all. I appreciate you bringing this up in the discussion. Societies are measured on how they treat their minorities and their vulnerable populations, and I never thought that I would be put in a position, and Robert talked about the Māori wards, although it doesn't affect us as a council, that a majority will be voting on the rights of a minority. Basically, that's what's going to be happening in this country. Not a great situation. It's my 5 cents.
Thank you. And just to close that conversation, Shana, that's reiterate Councillor Rodway's comments about the report being extremely useful and really well put together. So thank you very much. So I'd like to move the receipt of the report. Councillor Rollo, seconded Councillor Morrison. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And 9.5, the group program update, page 62.
This is just our update on what's happening in the wider group. So it's again, it's not just the policy planning work, it's across the whole science and inform engagement space. The only thing really from my team that's an update, and that's great thing is that we have submitted the regional land transport plan with NZTA. So that process is now done, and we're moving on to the next planning for.
No rest for the wicked.
Yeah, so everyone's supporting that.
Councillor Cook.
I'm just asking about that. How realistic is our predictions of the money we're going to get from for a regional transport plan? I read, our share between across South, it was
500 million.
Sorry?
Was it half a million? Half a billion?
Half a million, yeah. Are we sure of getting that money, or is that a prediction of what we want?
I hope we get money. We can do it for a lot more. But I think it's reasonably that some of the budgets were cut in bits and pieces, but they were changed around. But that's like to think, as I had mentioned, the government, everything that needs to be in the plan is in the plan as such. And certainly we've had all the government agencies there to tick it off too. But I think I gave an example in regards to having the priorities and all the bits and pieces there that when talking about the Queenstown, that they were asking about something that we wanted and they wanted out, and we left it in, and now they said, oh, did you leave that in there? Because it could be something that they could do in the future. So I think there's money floating around. It's where they want to spend it. But we can always do with a lot more, I would say, in South personally. And because I think the biggest issue with is the inflationary costs of roading. It looks like we're getting a lot more, but it's not actually necessarily lifting the level of service up. It's just what it's keeping status quo. That's probably a big concern, I would say. My evaluation of things. So
thank you.
Let's make sure they do get the money here. That's what I'm trying to say.
Any other questions? Oh, Marcus, do you want to comment?
Yeah, please, Chair, I'll pick up on a couple of points in the update. We've got, we flicked out an email last week around the emissions reduction plan. So I think we've had one response from councillors as to feedback on that. Keen to script that up today if there's any responses coming in, and we'll look to try and bring back a formulated submission on that feedback later on in the next council meeting before the end of the next month.
Councillors, get your typing over lunch done.
And one more thing, want to talk about the proposed core district plan process. We've had 3 hearings on that district plan review process. Next hearing is on Monday 19th of August. So consistently raising themes around flooding, flood management, residual risk around flooding in stock banks, etc. So just continuing to advocate for the regional policy statement position of taking a precautionary approach as to future zoning and land development rights in natural hazard prone areas. So I just wanted to put that on that process too. So that's underway. They're not looking to have decisions out for another 12 months or so. So the hearings are staged out over a year, and then there'll be some deliberation and outputs. After that, it'll be one big decision on the district plan process. So heavily engaged in that natural hazard space.
Chairman Horrell?
Just on that, I would have thought that any district plan should give effect to the regional plan. From what you're saying, that doesn't automatically happen. like as far as flooding, etc., that'll already be in our regional plan that subservient plans should give direction to, but from what I'm hearing, that's probably not the first position, or is it the pressure from developers who want to perhaps not follow what's in our plans?
Yeah, certainly through you, Madam Chair, any district plan has to give effect to the regional policy statements. The regional policy statement advocates for a precautionary approach and avoiding significant hazard risk. I guess the grey area in the conversation is around what is significant risk and is minor risk appropriate for future development or low risk appropriate for future development. So I guess we're advocating for taking a very precautionary approach, noting that there's flood risk and then there's climate change anticipated impacts with higher flood flows down rivers in the future. So looking to say that effectively moderate risk is still significant risk, it will be over time. So seeking to make sure that a lot of those conversations are considered as part of that process and looking to support them where we can with additional modelling and advice where we can to make sure that they are making the right decisions and preventing further development in natural hazard prone locations.
Any other questions?
Just one wee comment in regards to just hearing this. It was just an interesting discussion I had with one of the elderly farmers at our way, and we were talking to his great grandfather way back, one of the original settlers were settling around Gore. And the topic was where they bought their land or got their land. They're more out the East Gore heading out McNabb. Because of the floodplain, they thought that was where Gore would go. It was going to be built more out there because of the hills and elevated. They were just talking about flooding and things like that. But on the East Gore side, which is a bit safer, but powers that be decided, no, we'll stick it on all the flat ground over on the other side, and we've got the issues with flooding and where we're building, but they were also discussing that 150 years ago. Now where a town would become. It's quite an interesting discussion when you're talking about this. We're dealing with this now. So, anyway, that's just off the topic. But
Apologies, Councillor Gordon, I missed you out.
Not at all, thank you. Yeah, no, my question is about local water done well. And I see there's a working group. Have you any impression of the tenor of that group, where they sit philosophically or whatever, with regard to the fact that they're now having to work with a model which is vastly inferior to the one that was proposed, the three waters one? Are they feeling positive about what they've got to work with, or is there a feeling of like we've been dropped in a well?
Through you, Madam Chair, the Local Water Done Well working group is effectively Otago South and looking to try and find efficiencies of delivery. So all TAs and regional councils have to work together on services. Where are the opportunities to combine resources or look to share documents or mentoring staff and that sort of thing, and look at a delivery option moving forward. Is it local government or is it more a CCO approach, which is what the previous arrangement was, that Three Waters would go to a council controlled organisation or separate entity to deliver. So it's still very much exploring those options in accordance with the legislative drivers coming from Wellington. So looking to report back up through the mayoral forums, chief executive forums, and they're working closely with Ngāi Tahu in that sense too, as what does a whole Takiwara approach look like, just around that service delivery model as to what's best. So I guess the staff on the working group are working through the process has been requested by the CEs and in accordance with the legislative process. So they're not really tied to either way. It's more just running the process, making sure that they're looking at all options.
Right. Thank you very much.
Councillor McDonald.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So is this in thinking about clustering together for procurement reasons? Is that the end goal of this group?
Through you, Madam Chair, the end goal is effectively to look at a range of options, noting that in Otago South and not everyone, it's not an all-in or an all-out approach. There may be opportunities for different councils to combine and work together on certain aspects, and there may be certain councils that want to work alone. So I guess it's identifying a continuum of options from do it ourselves to a CCO, and knowing that politically there may be differences of opinions or budget lines or different drivers. That means a different council may be in a different space around the level they want to collaborate or work or deliver services. So it's not a one size fits all approach. It's more of a how do we look at different options for different councils depending on their situation.
No, look, I think that's good. We need to keep a good eye on it because we all share the same rate. At the end of the day, we have a regulatory function at the end of it.
Chairman Horrell.
Just on that, and I'll probably report more fully at the next meeting. I attended meeting Ngāi Tahu last Thursday, I think it was. We were very keen on a whole of Te Wai approach. To be fair to say, there are various opinions amongst the councils, but I think the outcome of the meeting to continue talking was a positive step. So you've got, the harsh reality is that some of the smaller councils face bankruptcy in the next 10 years if they go it alone. That has implications for, I mentioned Four Waters, that if they can't improve the water system, their sewage systems, etc., that also affects our ability to reach our goals. So it's a conversation that needs to continue. But the reality is, unless there's money to support these councils, things look pretty grim, really. And we had Brian Cadogan speaking on the Cleveland situation, and it's dire. He's saying within 10 years, the pensioner will be spending $1 and $3 on their rates bill if they go and have to go it alone, which is pretty scary numbers. So it's a conversation that's not going to go away, but everybody's still talking. I think that was a good outcome.
Thanks for that. Okay, somebody like to move the receipt of that report? Yes. Councillor Cook, seconded. Councillor Pemberton, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks, team.
Yeah, that's good.
And 9.6 is the update on council requests from the previous meeting or meetings. We read them. Okay, have you got anything to add to that?
We received the report.
Are you seconding, Councillor McDonald? Or you have a question? Yep, sure.
Yeah, I think this is really good. There was a question, now correct me if I'm wrong where this question came up, but it was on the back of an excellent letter written by Councillor Cook to the Southland Times, and we had significant discussion here around shared services, and I think, Madam Chair, you supported it, and there was an action from this council that we were to have a workshop on that topic. Would it be appropriate to put this that question into this table for future action?
Was that, Councillor, was that discussion at a strategy and policy or council meeting?
Can't quite remember.
I don't think it was strategy and policy, but we can follow up, and if it
can come through this committee.
It was actually about shared accommodation. Chair.
Yeah.
We have appointed two councillors for
so that was
Environment Southland.
There was a secondary action that came out of that, and I asked a question, and I think Chairman Harold indicated we would run a workshop on shared services. That came out of an ordinary meeting.
Yeah, and if it didn't, it certainly can now, right?
Well, if it's more appropriate, then it sits within this table.
Councillor McFarlane indicated.
We can only say we've had a first meeting in regards to discrimination, and you'll be provided with an update as soon as just setting things in terms of reference and bits and pieces. So that will be coming.
Yeah, two different issues. I'm sorry, I conflated the two. That's my fault.
Yes, all right, Councillor.
Just to expand on that, within the terms of reference, which you'll get an update on that particular project, that will trigger a need to have a discussion, I think, later in the year, once the material and information is available around how to reflect accommodation needs alongside shared services and or shared accommodation. So I think that will naturally trigger a conversation that will probably need a workshop, if not a meeting item at some point. But it requires a little bit of information yet to be brought together to enable that conversation to occur.
Okay, well, that's the next one.
Chairman Hall, did you want to comment?
Oh, just on the shared services conversation, the Merrill Forum has instructed CEs to work on that. So I'm not sure an individual workshop, but certainly a report on progress would probably be quite good. So you've got two things going on. There's the accommodation, but there's also, after the rate rises around the countryside, the community are saying you need to find efficiencies, and I think that's not going to go away. And so we need to be part of that discussion.
Yeah, and I would just add that actually, Councillor Morrison, I wouldn't be waiting for for one to happen first before we do the other. I think we can get the shared services discussion underway so that it's at least in motion when the shared accommodation discussion needs it, other than wait till for one thing to be running late. So let's get that underway. Thanks for raising that, Councillor. We have a mover for the report. Did we get a seconder? Thanks, Councillor McDonald. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Any extraordinary urgent business? Haven't been made aware of any. In that case, we will move to the public excluded section for these reasons.
Moving into public excluded to prevent the disclosure or use of official information for improper gain or advantage.
I'll move, Chair, to move into public
Councillor
business
Cook.
for that reason.
Seconded Councillor Pemberton. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Adrian will wink at me or blink at me, or Michaela will do an interpretive dance to let me know.